Hi, welcome back to Friday Live with Hodinkee. We're here, Cara Barrett, editor, and Jack Forrester.
Jack Forrester, editor-in-chief, Hodinkee.com. Great to see you all. This is actually our, it's kind of a...
it's an anniversary of sorts.
It is an anniversary of sorts. It's our 10th Friday Live episode.
Yeah, yay, we made it.
Thanks to you all. Thanks to support from our viewers. One thing that we always like to mention at the top of every episode is, as usual, at the end of the show, we will be taking questions from you folks. So if you have any for us, just drop down to the bottom of the story that we just posted and let us know what you'd like to hear about. Today we're going to be talking about all things Art of Watch's grand exhibition, Patek Philippe, as well as talking about their new complication, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yep.
And we have a special guest today as well, who will be joining us about halfway through the episode to talk about collecting rare handcrafts from Patek Philippe. So we'll be introducing him. Yeah. We got some unexpected news this morning.
Yeah, Jack was up at 4 a.m. writing the news for you guys.
Yep.
And in case you missed it, Georges Kern.
Yeah, so Mr. Georges Kern, who only 4 months ago started in a new position at the Richemont Group as head of watchmaking, marketing, and digital, very, very unexpectedly resigned after only 4 months in the position, which is, obviously you don't take a job like that thinking you're only going to be there for 4 months. But
no, certainly not. The
announcement from the Richemont Group referenced a entrepreneurial opportunity, and although this has not been confirmed by Mr. Kern nor by Breitling to my knowledge at this point, there have been several sources, including the Times and Bloomberg, saying that he is going to be involved in, and I quote, turning Breitling around. So he apparently has a position, a stock position, with Breitling, and that's where he's going to go.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does with Breitling. I think it'll be really interesting. I mean, he'll probably take the same approach that he did with IWC, maybe some new things, but yeah, I think it should be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the attraction is obvious. Mr. Kern is very much he enjoys a public-facing role, and he enjoys the sort of persona of activist CEO. This is an opportunity for him to really have a tremendous amount of autonomy, certainly more than he would have had with the group. So we wish him the best of luck. We wish the Richemont Group the best of luck, and finding someone to step into the very big shoes that Mr. Kern has left empty over there.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be posting about his success throughout the time. Yep. So, yeah, really exciting. But in other news, if you're in New York or if you've been following along, the Patek Philippe Grand Exhibition opened up the other day. We've all kind of had a chance to go look at it, and it's honestly one of the best exhibitions I've ever seen. If you're into watches, if you're not into watches, go. It's amazing.
I would worry that we've been overselling it, except it's really hard to oversell this. It is actually that extraordinary. Pretty much every important modern Patek Philippe piece, most of the more important vintage pieces, and stuff from the Patek Philippe Museum, Patek and non-Patek, going back to the 1500s, watches from the mid to late Renaissance. These are really, priceless treasures. And outside of the Patek Philippe Museum, a few other horological museums, places like the British Museum, you really just don't ever get a chance to see these things. So
yeah, it's like they brought the museum here. They actually built a mini museum inside Cipriani. So definitely worth going to see. What about some of the new releases? We talked about those earlier on the site. So
there are two of them that have really gotten the most notice and the most attention. I think the first one is the reference of 5531R World Time Minute Repeater. So there have been, I think most recently it was Louis Vuitton who put a minute repeater and a world timer in the same case. Now the trick with this is when you first set up a world time watch, you select a time zone that's going to sort of be your home time. And then when you change time zones, the minute repeater still chimes the home time rather than the local time you have chosen with the pusher. And the reason for that is that it's very, very difficult. I mean, heretofore it was considered basically impossible to mechanically couple the minute repeater complication to the time zone complication, and Patek Philippe has actually managed to do that. So, for instance, if you take your 5531R with you, it's 8 o'clock in New York, you land in Paris, and it's whatever the time difference is plus the flight, let's say 8 hours. So if there's an 8-hour difference, you reset the time to Paris time, and your watch your 5531R will be the only watch in the world that actually chimes the correct local time in Paris. And of course, that's true for any time zone that it goes to.
Pretty cool. Are you going to take that with you to your next trip to Geneva?
Well, I personally would love to travel with this watch. I think it's one of the ultimate fun, certainly high-end, high-art traveling timepieces. But it would be very difficult to do. For one thing, it's over $500,000, and secondly, there's only 10
one minor setback.
Minor setback.
But it's also really beautiful because the dial is in New York City.
That's a technical problem.
That's it, right?
It's a mere technical problem. So
Mind over matter.
Right. Yeah. Oh boy. So the other problem is, the other issue is a rarity. There's only 5 of them going to be made. 10 of them going to be made, excuse me. 5 of them showing the downtown New York skyline as seen from the Hudson River during the daytime, and 5 more showing the same view, but in the evening hours with a sort of a warm sunset glow.
Which one do you prefer?
I actually like the evening hours one. I think it's got a little bit more.
It's also New York, the city that never sleeps.
That's
so
right.
I feel like the nighttime one makes
catching it
sense.
at dusk is a good time to catch it.
Yeah.
We found out at the exhibition that the enamel work for the dials was actually done by the very, very famous and very highly regarded Anita Porcher. Having a piece of her work is always a fantastic thing if you are interested in métier d'art and rare handcrafts and in enameling in particular, which is something that our special guest today is very well equipped to talk about.
Yeah, so we'll touch base on that later.
The other piece that got a tremendous amount of attention was
the Pilot's Watch.
Pilot's Watch.
Yeah, so that one, the 5522A, with the new caliber 324S, or no, it's the same caliber that's in the Nautilus.
With center seconds.
Yeah, with center seconds.
That's right.
It's steel. There are only 600 made. I think the price point is like 21,000.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good for a Patek, if you ask me. I think that one's going to do really well.
Now, the interesting thing about all of that's far from a comprehensive list, obviously, of the special editions that Patek has created for the Art of Watches Grand Exhibition. Interestingly enough, they have chosen to make these watches only available through U.S. points of sale.
Yes, only at U.S. retailers.
So, which seemed a little, even at only 10 pieces, I thought, well, geez, that might be a little bit problematic, for $500,000 watch. But it's a new complication from Patek Philippe, and also in conversation with Thierry Stern, he told us that both historically and currently, the U.S. has always been one of the strongest markets for Patek Philippe, and currently is the strongest market for Patek Philippe. He told us that not the majority, but many very, very sort of discreet high-end Patek Philippe collectors are actually located in the United States. And a watch like this would be catnip to someone who collects.
Sandrine said the same thing to me yesterday.
She did?
She did.
Oh, yes, you talked to Mrs. Stern.
I did.
Sandrine
It's
Stern.
very nice meeting Mrs. Stern. She's a lovely lady. Talked about ladies' watches, men's watches, design. It was really fun.
And she is, in fact, a design director for Patek Philippe for the company as a whole.
Yes, she is. Very accomplished.
I believe the only woman to hold that senior a design position specifically in the Swiss watch industry.
Yeah, girl power.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
But on to the old stuff, the cool old stuff.
Cool old stuff.
There were several, as I said earlier, it's like they brought the actual museum to New York. So there are tons of pieces there. They have everything from Henry Graves watches, James Packard watches, no super complication, sadly.
Graves super complication, notably absent, but
they had the caliber 89, which is not the same, but it was there.
Not too shabby though.
Not too shabby. It's still big.
Yep.
So we kind of wanted to do a rundown of our favorite pieces that we saw at the exhibition. I'm going to start mine off with the reference 1415 HU World Time chronograph, which is the only one known. It has these really beautiful teardrop lugs. It was a gift to Dr. Schmidt in 1940. Fun fact.
Right.
And the caliber is the caliber 13-130 HU.
Now, and this watch was produced only, 1939 that Patek started making the World Time, the 1415 reference World Timer.
Yes.
So this would have been an extremely rare, essentially, wrist-worn work of art, even back then.
Yeah, exactly. And the 1415 now is still hard to come across, just as a standalone World Time wristwatch. Right. But this one has the added benefit of the chronograph.
Right. And the cloisonné dial models are, of course, the most desirable, as well as the rarest 1415s.
Yes. Yeah, and they're really beautiful to see. And then they had a desk clock there from Patek Philippe. There was a gift to JFK, and if you guys remember, a few weeks ago we talked about President's Watch, so it was nice to see another, timepiece that belonged to an iconic American. And that was the theme of this whole show. The whole grand exhibition is American, so it's all about timepieces that relate to American collectors, American themes. We'll talk more about those later. So it was a quartz clock that was a gift to JFK from Wally Brandt, mayor of Berlin, in 1963, after JFK gave a famous speech there. So,
and this is actually one of the very earliest quartz clocks, battery powered. some and it was actually lent to the exhibition by the JFK Presidential Museum in Boston.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it shows 3 time zones, U.S. or East Coast, Moscow and Berlin.
And my recollection is that the reason for that is that was the year that the so-called hotline was instituted between Moscow and
Berlin?
And Moscow, Berlin, and Washington, D.C.
I didn't know that.
So the sort of idea was, if I don't know if JFK wanted to call up Nikita Khrushchev and say, hey, let's perhaps not have a nuclear exchange today, he'd know whether or not he was waking him up.
Yeah, exactly.
But an incredible piece of history, and actually amazing that the museum was able to get it from the JFK library. I understand that there were significant logistical hurdles that had to be overcome just to get the clock down.
I'm sure.
And then you multiply that by the literally hundreds of watches that are at the exhibition.
Security must be pretty high.
Yeah, liability insurance.
Yeah, it's a biggie.
Yeah, boggles the mind.
It's a whole thing.
So that's next week's show.
Yeah, next week's show, join us.
Liability insurance.
Which actually we could probably talk about that. But yeah, so finally, rounding out my selection is the reference 2512, which is a 46 millimeter oversized yellow gold chronograph that was the inspiration for the 5070. Another fun fact about that is there's another 2512 out there that's a time only, black dial, yellow gold, same size, 46 millimeters, and it sold at Sotheby's, and it was my first auction at Sotheby's, December 2012. I'll never forget it. I've never been so stressed in my life, and it was it was a really beautiful watch, and I remember being so obsessed with it. And if you actually go on its Cara time, one of my first pictures is of that watch because it was so incredible.
So that one really caught your eye in particular.
Yeah, and that one sold.
This isn't the same watch, is it?
No, it's different. So this one was a time-only version. I think it was a 2512/1. There was some weird confusion with the reference number because there's so few of them made.
Yep.
And so I think this one is the chronograph version that has really small chronograph buttons, but it's the inspiration for the modern 5070, which is also one of my favorite modern Pateks. So,
you and Louis just kill me with your capacity to remember these reference numbers. I mean, it's something that I've gone public that I'm just absolutely terrible at, and it's just sort of phenomenal to be able to pull these things. Well, I mean,
I'm not that good at reference numbers. Sometimes I mix them up. It's really fun, especially when you're on live camera.
Well, you're better than I am.
Also, it's written down right here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Give away trade secrets.
Sorry. All right.
Okay, so it was really, really difficult for me to pick. I don't really have 3 favorites. I have 3 that I thought were kind of standouts, but it could have been. There are so many possible groups of 3 from this thing. That said, an easy one was a astronomical clock with a minute repeater. This was made for a James Ward Packard. So James Ward Packard was one of the biggest collectors of complicated watches, along with Henry Graves. They actually had a little bit of a, sort of an ongoing and I think very expensive arms race going on.
Yeah, they did.
To see who could get the most expensive or the most complicated watch. And I think the winner by general consensus was Henry Graves.
Yeah.
However, this particular complicated watch is sort of typical of what happens when you get 2 highly motivated alpha males trying to outdo each other in watchmaking in the 1920s and 1930s. It was delivered in 1927. It is a minute repeater chiming on 3 gongs. It's got a perpetual calendar, shows the age and phase of the moon, day and date, of course, shows the equation of time. Very unusually, there was for pocket watches, it had a sunrise-sunset complication. And there was also a star chart on the back, so it's a phenomenally beautiful, complicated, classic example of, highly complicated high watchmaking from that era, just before the financial crisis, of course. The second watch that I thought was especially notable was one that belonged to Duke Ellington. Now, this is usually I'm more kind of drawn to craft and complexity rather than provenance per se, but Duke Ellington is, of course, he's arguably the single greatest figure in American jazz, and jazz in general, of the 20th century. Over 1,000 compositions to his name, and he toured from decades, both in the United States and internationally with the Duke Ellington Orchestra. And whenever the Duke Ellington Orchestra was in town, it was the hottest ticket in town. So, right after World War II, the Duke happened to be in Geneva, and on July 28th, 1948, he purchased this reference 1563 chronograph. There's only 3 of them that are known to exist. And it's kind of the holy grail. It's a holy grail for Patek Philippe collectors. There's a lot of possible holy grails if you're
out there.
Patek Philippe collector, but this one is really, it's extraordinary both in terms of provenance and in terms of aesthetics, in terms of complexity. The Rattrapant is considered a high complication traditionally. All of those things kind of come together in a perfect storm of perceived value in this watch. Yeah. The last time one of these came to auction, it was offered by Christie's in 2013, and it went for 1.5 million, more or less converted from Swiss francs. It's just a wonderful, wonderful example, not only of a beautiful mid-century wristwatch, but also beautiful watchmaking from Patek Philippe. And you don't, as far as provenance is concerned, it doesn't get much classier than Duke Ellington,
so
except for maybe.
Graves.
What's that?
Graves.
No, except for Mrs. Kennedy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that one's mine.
The Jackie Kennedy watch.
Yes.
All right, so the last one that I thought was extremely interesting, and this one is kind of reflective of my personal fascination with precision timekeeping. So this is the movement is really the story in this one. So this is a tourbillon wristwatch. It started out as it was born in 1947 just as a movement, and it was made by one of the most famous tourbillon designers of the 20th century, a gentleman named André Bournand, who's if you're into the sort of very granular world of technical tourbillon making, his is a famous name. So Mr. Bournand made this tourbillon in 1947, and it was entered movement number 861115. And it was entered several times in the Geneva Observatory trials. Generally, it did extremely well. It was actually awarded a first-class observatory bulletin in 1958. And then it basically just sort of, I guess it was just sort of rattling around in a drawer at Patek Philippe for a while. As priceless tourbillons do.
As you do. I mean, yeah. Why not?
Finally, what happened in about 1983 or so, according to Patek Philippe, a gentleman who had a nice steady job there named Mr. Philippe Stern ran across it and decided that it would be super entertaining to wear this
on the wrist?
Sort of Formula One version of a wristwatch as a wristwatch. So he had it cased for him, and it just sort of wore it around.
Why not?
As one does.
As you're going to do with that new world time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think it's very unlikely to happen, but you wouldn't have to ask me twice.
Yeah. Well.
All right, so we're going to bring on our special guest now. One thing that we were able to do was we had a very nice long conversation with Mr. Thierry Stern, of course, president of Patek Philippe now, and he told us a lot of super interesting stuff. We're going to give you a little sample of the video while we bring on our guest. But of course, if you'd like to see the whole thing, you can find it on houdinki.com.
And don't forget your questions.
Yes, don't forget your questions.
We're getting to those next.
All right. See you in 60 seconds.
Today we are all set. We are ready for 2 weeks to show the museum pieces, the collection, the watchmaker are here, the movement rooms are here. Let's discover what is a mechanical watch. That's the main idea. And for collectors, of course, they will also enjoy it because there will be some massive museum pieces. We are talking about over 100 pieces, and some of them made for the US with very famous name for sure on the certificate. The Patton's watch, to Joe DiMaggio, to Kennedy, there will be a lot of them. I think you have to come to see it. If I start to enumerate all those beautiful watches, it will be too sad. You have to discover it yourself.
And we're back. I'm here with Billy Ruvelson, an avid Patek Philippe collector and friend of the brand, and friend of ours as well. And we're here to we wanted to bring you on and talk to you about what you thought about the exhibition and what some of the highlights were for you. I know we just went through all the vintage pieces, but I know you have a particular interest in the high arts pieces that they have on display. And for your information, they also have all of their craftsmen on site, kind of performing each different technique. And one of the ones we mentioned earlier was Anita Porcher, which I know you have a massive respect for her as well. So tell me a little bit about meeting her and what you like to collect as well.
So the Grand Exhibition is really that. It is truly a grand exhibition, and it's a collection that certainly has never been anywhere, anything in this country. We've never seen anything like it. So it's amazing to see. It's kind of like a combination of the museum, a little bit of the factory, and a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to make these watches.
Yeah.
And you can meet Anita, who was there. I did, and spoke to her.
Yeah. Did you? I was like really overwhelmed when I met her. Because I've known about her since a few years ago at Sotheby's. They sold these like eagle enamel pieces that she made, and I remember writing the note. And it was so cool meeting her. She's such a tiny, reserved lady, and she's just so sweet. And it was just incredible to meet the person behind all of these crafts. Did you feel the same way?
I was standing there. I was talking to Laurent, and I said, "Is that Anita Porcher?" And he's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Wow." So like sort of enamel royalty at the Grand Exhibition. It was really amazing to talk to them. If you speak French, great. If you don't, there's a translator there. So all the rare handcrafts were well displayed, and tremendous opportunity to see something that, frankly, you don't even see this much at Basel.
Yeah.
So this, for anybody who is interested in seeing beautiful watches and the museum pieces, and of course the special editions for this Grand Exhibition, it's a must-see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're anywhere near New York, you must come here.
Yeah.
And I think you have 9 days before they strike it.
July 23rd. And I know you said you loved the dome clock. There was the baseball-themed dome clock. What spoke to you the most about that piece?
So I thought what really was special about the Grand Exhibition is that they made it feel so customized for the American market. And the one dome clock in particular, the baseball dome clock, is, to me, it captures the essence of Americana in baseball. And the dial is beautiful. There's a baseball on the dial, and it's a Limoges painted product, and it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
The enamel work is second to none, of course, which you would expect from Patek. And then I think some of the other really nice Americana pieces were the Native American Indian,
the chief with the turquoise.
Yes.
Yeah, that was incredible.
And I think the moon landing, to me, was I'm still speechless when I try to talk about it. It's that beautiful.
It's so crazy how I feel like the moon landing ties itself into watches, so with the Speedmaster and everything, and then they have this as well, and it's really incredible because I think the dial it looks like the face of the moon.
Yes.
And then on the back they have the astronaut. The astronaut.
And it
landing.
combines marquetry and enameling.
Yep.
And the technical detail is so perfect, and it's beautiful. It really belongs. It's a museum piece.
I agree.
It's that beautiful.
And that's the thing, is they have so many different techniques that not many people are aware of. They have the Champs-Élysées. I always want to say Champs-Élysées, which is really embarrassing. Champs-Élysées
Happy
enamel.
Bastille Day, everyone.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then they have the cloisonné. They have marquetry where they actually cut pieces of wood and they place it all together. They have the gem setting alone is remarkable. And then they have what's it called when they do the engrave? They chase the little patterns.
Oh yes, they have the engine turning. They have the guilloche. Beautiful. And everybody's there. The person who does the guilloche, the person who does the marquetry. The marquetry it's impossible to comprehend that these are tiny slivers of different color wood, the size of like a fingernail clipping, assembled in this beautiful collage, a mosaic pattern that makes it look like a piece of moving art. It's just amazing. And
I think Anita was saying it took her 2 months. It takes her generally around 2 months to create one dial. And she says if she cracks the enamel, she has to start all over again. So I think you have to have the most insane amount of patience for that, much like watchmaking. But so you said you have a couple of dome clocks, and you also you do collect some of the high art pieces as well. What do you look for when they're so rare, they don't make that many. Do you have a specific genre that you liked, or do you just just whatever speaks to you?
I really like the enamel pieces because I think there's something special about the enamel, and you have my Titanic on somewhere up there.
Yeah, we brought Billy kindly brought one of his watches with him, and it's the Titanic, and it's really remarkable. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Sure. I first saw that watch in Basel. I want to say 2015. And it was part of a set with some other very nice ocean liners, and it has an Art Deco presence and a theme to it with the Titanic on it. And I love Art Deco, and I love ocean liners, and So it just, for me, it was beautiful. And then, you know, you never know if they're going to even send them to the U.S. or not. So
right.
It's one
Did
of those.
you get this in the U.S.? Or?
I got it in the U.S. Yeah, I did. Nice. And so I love the enamel stuff. They've just, of course, the World Time. Everybody knows those are very well known.
Yeah.
But I think some of the ladies' pieces, you were talking about Sandrine Stern. She had a beautiful watch on last night.
With the rose dial.
And the diamonds
Yeah,
around
it's
it.
really amazing. It's an oversized Calatrava as well.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's stunning. It was so, it was amazing. So when I met her yesterday, she was wearing it, and it was just really cool to see her wearing a piece from the collection. And there really is no one that does enameling like Patek. I mean, they really are the best of the best. What other kind of watches do you, from Patek, I know Patek is your main shtick, what other kind of watches from them do you like to collect? Or is it more modern? Do you do vintage as well? Or
So I love the Nautilus. I love all things Nautilus. And I love the Nautilus because of the bracelet.
It's comfortable.
It is so comfortable. wearing that bracelet, my favorite watch, and a lot of my friends get sick of seeing the 5712 on my wrist, but you know,
it's a great watch. I mean, why not?
So I love that watch. It feels so good. That Nautilus bracelet is the greatest bracelet of any watch brand.
Better than a Rolex bracelet?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. It feels better. It's so much nicer.
Yeah.
It really is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's there is nothing better than a well-made bracelet. I think it makes or breaks a watch, truly. And I think that maybe the Rolex, the Oyster, and the Nautilus are the two best.
And the Oyster bracelet is fantastic.
Yeah, but yeah, I totally agree. I love the Nautilus as well. I think it's a great design and certainly collectible. What do you think about the new the Pilot's
5522?
Yes, 5522. What do you think about that? I mean, there's 600 pieces. Do you think they're going to fly off the shelves? Like,
600 pieces, and I'm pretty sure that all the dealers who are here from the U.S. could sell triple that amount.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful watch. Obviously, it has the same coloration, save for one being stainless, one being white gold, as the Pilot. 5524. And I think the coloration of the dial, the simplicity of a time-only, no-date watch, it's just very classy, very elegant. And the leather strap happens to look really nice. The color of the leather against that dial with the stainless.
I agree.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I think it was smart to make stainless steel watch like that. I think people will eat it right up, and it's a good kind of entry-level Patek Philippe.
I think...
But it's a collector's item at the same time. So it's kind of, you get the best of both worlds, where it's really rare, but the price point is there.
And I think it speaks to Patek Philippe and their affinity for the U.S. market, because they very easily could have done a platinum or a white gold, something much, much, much more expensive, where they theoretically could have made more money. And I think they wanted to kind of, this is a tip of the hat to the U.S. market and the U.S. consumer and the dealers who have, like you were talking about earlier with Jack, the U.S. is really the most constant market for Patek.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sandra was saying about like 10, 15 years ago, Patek Philippe, the name was not as strong as it is now, but the U.S. was always their number one. Like, it was always, people knew the brand, they know it, it's familiar, like they recognize it. I was in my Uber yesterday, I was dropped off at the exhibition, and the guy was like, "Oh, Patek Philippe," and I was like, "Oh yeah, you should go, like the exhibition's amazing." So it's so...
Speaking of exhibition, I think it's important to tell everybody that it's free. It's free for everybody.
Yeah, it's open to the public, anyone can go.
I was really impressed that they had a little coloring book area for children.
Yeah.
There's a cafe in the back, they have a bookstore.
Yeah.
So I'm blown away. I spent 5 hours there yesterday, and I'm going, I think, either later this afternoon or again tomorrow.
What was your favorite vintage piece in the museum that you saw?
Favorite vintage piece was the enamel George Washington portrait pocket watch, by far.
That was cool.
And again, it's sort of the Americana theme. And that was a watch made originally by Patek, and it's got the center seconds kind of offset down by 5 o'clock. And on the back, the enamel, beautiful grisaille enameling, really kind of captures George Washington. Yeah. And I thought that was just, it belonged, it had to be there, and it was there, and I think anybody who sees it will feel very, very proud to be an American when they see all the stuff that is Americana.
Yeah. I also like the shooting bird pistols. Did you see those?
Yes, the pair of them, absolutely.
Well, I think those were like $5 million each?
Well, yes, $5 million each, but I think they'll probably do a deal for you.
Yeah.
Not a buy one, get one, but...
They'll give me a little discount, maybe a little 20% off.
They were beautiful. And that stuff, all this lost art, is something that Patek does and takes very seriously, and they care about cherishing the artisans and the craftsmen and the craftswomen
Yeah.
who spend the hours and hours and hours making these dials that, very few ever get produced.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And the cool thing about, actually, back to the pistols, not to obsess over them, but the cool thing is Michel Parmigiani actually did the restoration on those.
Oh, interesting.
So that's always a fun fact. But I think it kind of is like the World's Fairs, how they used to have like the World Expositions that would come and travel, and that's kind of what this feels like. It's just filled with treasures that you never get to see. But
on two stories.
In
a structure that looks like it's been there for years, but was
Exactly.
really, it's a temporary structure that's going away very soon.
Yeah, and the good news is we're covering it extensively. So even if you can't get to New York, you'll be able to kind of view pictures on Hodinkee, and the museum always has these pieces kind of in Geneva as well. So if you ever get there, you can go see them. So maybe we should move to questions and see if any of our readers have submitted things. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. From PKK9318. For each of our hosts, what is or could be the next watch on your watch buying wish list, and why?
Probably I'm excited for the 5320, the new Perpetual.
Okay.
I think that is just a beautiful, beautiful piece.
That is beautiful. No, I think that's a great one. I think for me, I want another Rolex. I want a 1016 matte dial.
Let it be known that you've got the new ceramic Rolex Daytona on the wrist.
Yeah, I wore. Yeah, ooh, I like what I like. I can't help it. But yeah, I really want a matte dial 1016. Doesn't have to be fancy. Maybe from the 80s. I don't know. That's what's on my list right now. Next we have. Let's see. Oh, Luke Colley heard the VR exhibition at Patek is great.
Yes.
Did you try it out?
About that.
So I didn't get to try it.
Oh, you've got to.
So I'm going to go back and try it. But you tried it.
I did.
Tell us. Were you car sick? What happened?
No, but I can say that I have made the movement for a Grandmaster chime. So
there you have it.
It is a really like anything Patek does. If it's not the best, they just won't do it. And so this VR assembly of a movement is really spectacular. So you've got the goggles on, and then you've got somebody who is kind of talking you through it, and you kind of take a wand, if you will, and you pick up a piece and put it in the...
That is so cool.
It's
I'm mad I
really-
didn't try it. I have to go back now.
Do it standing up.
Oh, okay.
You can sit down or stand up.
Okay, so standing up is better?
Yes.
Okay. What if you get motion sickness, though?
Sit down.
Okay. Okay. I've done one of those
Take a
virtual reality
Dramamine.
things before at Basel, and I was like, it was very special. But yeah, no, I definitely want to go back and try that.
And also there's a little movie on the ground floor that's behind kind of a cubby. It looks like it's an entrance to a closet. Go back there because it's the story of how Patek
that's
and
right.
Philippe met, and
Yeah.
it's really, really cool.
Oh, awesome. This is a good question for you. Kaizen Writer, is a Patek Nautilus 5711 with a no-date variant something that we want to see?
I like dates.
I like dates too. Very controversial on this site, but it's practical.
It's very practical. The watch is a practical tool.
I agree. I agree, but I would like to see one without a date because I think it's nice to have an option.
One of the reasons why I don't wear a Daytona that
It's
often.
because you can't. I know, and I constantly check my wrist to see what date it is, and it's wrong. I don't have it. Let's do one more. Oh, I guess so. Your favorite Patek. Someone asked what your favorite Patek is, but you said Nautilus. That's your favorite.
Yeah, in general, that's my daily wear is a 5712.
Yeah. Okay.
Love it.
perfect. Yeah. Plan Le Watches GE. Which is the watch that you regretted buying the most, and why? And if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. But that is a good question.
I don't regret any of them.
Okay.
I don't regret it.
I like the spin. Yes.
No, that's true because watches, yes, they often lose value, but they're watches. If you have a watch that you don't love or wish you got the white instead of the black or something
You
like
learn that about the process.
You can learn that, and listen, there are ways of trading and selling and buying or keeping, because sometimes watches that I wasn't really enamored with 10 years ago, I'm finding very cool right now.
Okay.
So I would say the only watch experience I regret is probably selling something that I look back and wish I still
Wish you
had.
had kept, yeah. Well, and is that from an investment standpoint or an emotional standpoint?
No, an emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you keep your watches in So someone asked last week about the humidity and the humidifier and keeping watches in a certain temperature. Do you do that?
I keep my watches dry and at room temperature.
Okay. What if it's really hot outside?
I will still wear my watch.
Okay, there
absolutely.
you go. Yeah.
I live in LA and it's fortunately never too hot. This weather out here is crazy.
I know, it's been
like
horrible.
a sauna.
It's been horrible. Yesterday was miserable, today it's raining. Can't win. Can't win. And then let's see if there's one more. I think that's all we have. That's all we have.
Well,
So that's it. But thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you,
today, and it's been such a pleasure. And honestly, love the Patek exhibition. So just can't praise it enough.
I'm.
Are you going back before
I'm
you
absolutely
leave?
going. Oh,
Okay.
for sure. It is. I'm here till Sunday,
Okay.
and
So you'll go tomorrow 9 to 5, and then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But everybody who, whether you're a watch person or an art person, this is something that you'll never get an opportunity to see ever again.
Yeah. No, I agree. Go out and see it. And thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.